She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Taco waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's at the wall. And the
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Steve, glad to be on here with you. You know what? This is a special episode here of Tablesetters. This is the last episode of Tablesetters I will be recording as a man in his 30s. It's a new decade for me in a couple days.
Pretty crazy, man. And obviously, always looking forward to the month of May for the birthday and the warm weather. But I can't believe the month of April is over. And it's crazy because we always follow the baseball calendar. But this month flew by. I know there's a lot of sports going on with the Knicks being in the playoffs and the NHL playoffs. And, of course, wrestling and WrestleMania season. And now baseball kicking off. I don't remember April flying by. I know it's 30 days, Devin, but it flew by.
It did fly by. And on the other side of things, even though it flew by, I feel like so much has happened. Like, in a way, I feel like we're deeper into the baseball season than we actually are. That could be the Mets fan in me that just feels like I've already had to endure so much misery. Maybe that's it. But yeah, I just feel like so much has happened, whether it be guys getting called up, guys having surprisingly bad performances, managers being fired, on and on and on. A lot has happened already.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it through the lens of fantasy baseball. And one of these days we'll hop on and do a Roto Setters episode to talk about fantasy because it all ties together. We always have a conversation about it and always give you guys some of our tidbits. And we have a very competitive league. I'm sure a lot of you guys listening out there are playing different formats. This is the 6th week that's happening right now in fantasy baseball. I know that first week was abbreviated, but 6 weeks of fantasy baseball, we're in a rhythm now. It's no longer just an early sample size. We're getting into what it will be for 2026.
Yeah, I feel like you have enough, at least in the fantasy world, you have enough under your belt to kind of have a better feel for your team. I know in our league, my team is a disappointing 2-3, but I have one of the biggest point totals in the league. And I know offensively, I have one of those teams that can hit a bunch of bombs. Pitching, I feel like I'm one arm short, but in our league, I feel like almost every manager feels like that every season. So trying to figure it out on the fly here. Travis Bazzana, who we're going to talk about pretty early in the show tonight, is one of my guys that I had in my NA spots, my prospect spots, just called up. A little bit of we don't talk about this. This is a legitimate problem. Like, you want your guys called up that you've been holding, but sometimes it creates this log jam. And I had Bazzana called up and George Springer basically activated off the IL at the same time. And I'm looking at my roster. The one guy I could probably drop is Nick Martinez, who I streamed to a great start, but he's been so good. Like, there's a big part of me that wants to hold on to him and just see if he can keep it going. I actually have some things to say about him tonight when we talk about the Rays, which is one of our segments, because it's interesting if you look at some of the advanced stuff, the behind the scenes stats. But yeah, it's tricky when you get that. You only have so many spots, and it's like, all right, well, who do I drop here? I'm gonna have to make that decision probably sometime in the next few days.
Yeah, a lot gets made about who we add and who we are looking for to find the hidden gems, but it's also about who you hold on to. Some of these players that are streamed or otherwise, you make the wrong decision and cut them. We've all done it before. You wind up cutting a guy and he winds up going off, and that's what you want in a league. You want to be competitive enough where you have a whole bunch of different decisions to make. That is the heavy crown that a lot of fantasy baseball champions do have to own. It's something that every fantasy platform, you're making tough decisions, lineup, otherwise, starting, dropping, all that stuff. But want to support our show, you guys can follow us on IG and on X at Tablesetterspod. And if you guys are new to us, since we've been getting a whole bunch of surplus in the following department, because Devin continues to post all those notables on a daily basis, welcome. Thank you guys for supporting the show. And welcome aboard. Devin, you want to speak about the notables you've been posting on? Anything you want to make note of?
No, I mean, just we're keeping up on it. It's a daily thing. So if you enjoy it, if it's helping you, whether it be in the fantasy world and who to start, or maybe the gambling world, I know some of you guys enjoy doing that, even if it's small amounts of money. on certain guys, putting some home run props together, things like that. Just I would say we've talked a little bit about it on the last couple episodes, but if you have any feedback there, something you'd like to see added to that, or something that you're not happy with, maybe you think I'm including some things that I shouldn't be including, or I'm not including others. I said this last week. I'm trying to find a happy medium between what's a good enough sample size to feature as a notable. And in my mind, it really depends. So, for example, if someone's 2 for 3 against a pitcher, I'm probably not going to note that unless it's 2 for 3 with 2 home runs, or maybe a pretty big home run hitter that's 2 for 3 with 1 home run. I might note that. But for the most part, I'm trying to get something that's a little more significant out there. And I try to put the more significant ones at the top. So that's not something I've talked about, but I don't necessarily put all of them in order, but I do try to put the most notable in the first few spots at the top. But, it's people have been enjoying it, and we've gotten tons of new followers. I hope a lot of those new followers are also listening, not just checking out the Twitter page or the Instagram, but also listening tonight or whatever it may be. And if you are, welcome. Hopefully you stick around.
So with that being said, let's get into our opening say and really start this discussion for the week of baseball. All right, so we have some news that broke down this weekend, and I was doing a wrestling show when the Boston Red Sox debacle was going down, and all the notifications, a lot of baseball fans around me, everyone was seemingly in shock at the same time. And then it became a two-part story, because the Boston Red Sox and the Philadelphia Phillies aren't just about 2 bad starts at this point. It's about, to me, and we'll get into all of this, how quickly the expectations can force action when results don't match the plan. You're seeing it firsthand with your New York Mets right now, that down 13-2, thanks in part to Brady House's grand slam against the Nats. Both teams, Phillies, the Red Sox, they came into 2026 with belief in their rosters. We did the season previews, and within the first month, both made major leadership changes. And I guess start with Cora here. Their decision to part ways with him, and also let's not forget 5 members of the coaching staff came immediately after a 10-17 start. Let's not forget they scored 17 runs the night prior. So that was the first time in baseball history anything like that happened. The organization got in front, and there's been a lot of bad press in Boston. Every button they've pushed, really not just this year, in the past couple months or seasons, have been really the wrong decisions. And they said, quote, most areas of the club have underperformed. The timing is jarring. As I mentioned, 17-1 win, the largest margin of victory in any manager's final game in modern baseball. That's a fact that Alex Cora can hang on his head. But the Red Sox didn't view that game as a turning point. It seems like the decision was made. They viewed it as the outlier. We have Sam Kennedy, Craig Breslow being ahead of this, emphasizing the decision was about creating what they're calling a fresh start. 135 games remaining. At this point, they're reinforcing that they believe that this roster can compete. They just need a reset in direction. They're not looking to tear this down, Devin. There's some urgency over there. At least that's what they're saying. Chad Tracy steps in as interim manager, and there's multiple staff changes. But my thing, too, before we move into Rob Thomson, how it all ties together, because Alex Cora was offered that Philadelphia Phillies seat that was left empty. My concern is the players' pushback. Some of the quotes we saw from players about playing the way AC wanted us to play, it seems like it's this powder keg that's ready to blow in Boston.
And it's felt like that in Boston for over a year now, ever since all the Ralphie Devers stuff, which is really where I feel like the story starts. We could probably do a whole podcast episode tracking all this back, to be honest. But to kind of put it a little quicker here, a quicker discussion. I think you're right. I mean, listen, what I've learned over the last year and a half about Craig Breslow is he is an awful communicator. He's terrible. There's always miscommunication going on constantly, whether it be the Devers stuff. And then there was something about like last year with Devers where they didn't want him to, he didn't want to play first, but then all of a sudden he was out there practicing like ground balls. And then he went to the Giants and he was practicing ground balls at first. It was a mess last year, and it's only gotten to be a bigger mess. Their offseason left a lot to be desired amongst Boston Red Sox fans. Breslow, I put him right in the David Stearns basket. You guys, if you've listened, know how I feel about Stearns at this point as a Mets fan. To me, they both come off as guys who think they're smarter. They think they're the smartest guy in the room, think they know better, with not a lot to back that up. There's really not a lot for them to point to say, see, like I'm a genius. It just seems like they push all the wrong buttons, or most of them. Boston, and also he came into a great situation when he took over. Also, they had this like loaded system, some very talented players, and he squandered it. I certainly don't think this is really Alex Cora's fault. I get the idea that I think this firing is, yes, partly about record, and I think Breslow used the record, but my guess would be that Alex Cora did not necessarily bend the knee to Breslow and do exactly what he wanted to do. For years now, for a decade, there's been all this conversation about managers really don't do much anymore. The front office sends a paper down to them and they do what's on the paper. I'm guessing Cora didn't always listen to Breslow and the front office guys of what they wanted to do. And listen, if you're doing that and you're winning, they can't fire you, right? Especially with the history that Cora has there. But if you have a 10-17 record, well, there's your reasoning. It's similar to last year. I think David Stearns wanted to blow up the Mets core for a while. I really do. I think he wanted to put his own stamp, and a lot of those guys were not his guys, obviously. And the Mets gave him the reason to do that, where he could actually pull the trigger last year when they choked down the stretch. I think this is similar. I think Breslow, maybe this is something they had an eye on, and there was some disagreements front office and manager, and all right, 10-17, see ya. Chad Tracy, we'll see. Seems like, I've heard some Red Sox saying pretty positive things about Tracy, but we already saw, I don't know if you saw, Brian Bayo got pulled off the mound after another pretty poor outing. And as Chad Tracy was coming out, Bayo's just shaking his head over and over, like, no, like this. And even as he leaves, shaking his head, clearly like not happy. So there's going to be some guys that I guess have to be won over by Tracy, but it's a messy situation. I was out on Boston this year. I was in on them last year. I think they're more talented than their record, but the offense, and I said this from the beginning, especially in the AL East, just wasn't enough, especially when Jarren Duran, now second year in a row, just looks like that one really good year might have been the outlier instead of the bad years being the outlier. Jarren Duran may actually be just kind of an average major league player at best. Like I know that hurts for a Boston fan to hear, but if you look at the numbers for a pretty prolonged period of time now, it's hard to say otherwise. But yeah, I think there's going to be some discontent there. Players are going to want to go out there and win. They're not going to want to put up stinkers because it goes on the back of their baseball card. It plays into their next contract. So they're going to go out there and play. But as far as if Chad Tracy can keep the clubhouse together, that remains to be seen.
So heading to Philly, the situation of Rob Thomson is a little bit different, but more of the same, of a panic button being hit. 9-19 start for the Phillies. They're just as bad as the New York Mets. Thomson acknowledged the reality of this. He came out with an article today saying that when the team isn't playing well, the manager should be held accountable, and rightly so. He said there's no indication of any hard feelings, so he took the high road here. It doesn't feel like Cora, he hasn't got in front of a microphone and discussed it yet, but it feels like Cora, when he has the opportunity, is going to blast the situation, and it's going to be must-see TV.
But Rob the Thomson, Instagram picture out.
I did see that, all the coaches posing together, and the Cora, for like him or hate him, and a lot of people out there feel very strongly about him. He's embroiled in a lot of things that a lot of fans, if he's not on your squad, can be irritating. But clearly he was a winner. There's no doubt about it. There was something about him that a lot of the players resonated and still do. Like I said before in the post game, they wanted to play for him. They wanted to play the AC style of ball. We played to make him proud. That's not what you want to hear when you just fired him and picking up the pieces of that. But for the Rob Thomson thing, I think he talks about the appreciation. He took the high road, as I said. The Phillies made a change because, similar to the Boston piece, the start forced their hand. And the layer of this, Dave Dombrowski, as I said before, reached out to Alex Cora prior to Thomson being informed of his dismissal, which shows that this was proactive. This has been in the works. I think the Phillies team were dead on their feet for a bit. They've been planning for this transition. It's quite clear. And you got to wonder if other teams off to slow starts, we can sit here and talk about the New York Mets. But when I did the math on this, and this is not including tonight, so it probably gets worse with the loss of the Mets tonight and also the Red Sox. When you zoom out, the Red Sox, the Phillies, and the Mets combined for a 40-56 start. And that conversation around baseball We talked about how early is too early. Is it eventually going to be a point where you have to make a change? I think there's a panic meter level that everyone talks about. What's the number? Fan bases like to be very hyperbolic about how they feel. These are moves that feel like you have to pull the lever when things get tough, and all of a sudden the season disappears. As a fan, you watch enough baseball, and this is about Boston and Philly, but it also is about the New York Mets, because all the start you have and all the hope you have, you don't want to flush it down the toilet in just 30 days. And that's what feels like these three teams have done. And I guess I pass it to you. Do you believe Carlos Mendoza is gone? Because the trend feels like this is a full clean slate. They set the trend, and baseball usually comes in threes like that.
Yeah, I mean, David Stearns is in a tough spot here because Mendoza is his guy. So, like, there's already a lot of Met fans and other people that aren't Met fans out there saying, like, listen, this is the team that David Stearns built. So, like, sure, Mendoza, yeah, eventually he's going to need the blame. I mean, he was the one that looked over the collapse last year, right? And clearly that team should have been a playoff team. They were so good in the first half. So to be the manager in charge of that team the second half when they just fell apart and you couldn't necessarily put your finger on why. Whereas this year, it's like, all right, this is a poorly constructed team. And Soto got hurt, and now Lindor got hurt. Two guys that don't really have long injury history now are going out. David Peterson and Kodai Senga look like they've completely forgotten how to pitch. Other than that, you've gotten some pretty decent pitching. I mean, a lot of those losses in that 12-game losing streak earlier were competitive games where they just couldn't put up any runs. But to answer your question, not get too deep into the Mets, I think, yes, he's going to be gone. Because if they don't go on any sort of winning streak, and they can't even win a series against the Rockies or the Nationals, if they lose again tomorrow against the Nationals, like, eventually you got to say, all right, we got to try something. And there is a history of letting managers go in the middle of a season and the team getting a little bump. If you look historically, like, there are a lot of teams who've ended up playing better afterwards. I mean, the Phillies years ago, right?
Thomson, yeah.
They let Girardi go mid-season. Rob Thomson comes on board, and they went to the World Series that year. And now Thomson is the guy who he gets let go. We'll see what Don Mattingly can do there. First ever GM coach father-son duo between the Mattingleys there in Philadelphia. So that's kind of cool. And I'll just say I'm jumping all over the place a little bit, but I wanted to make a note of, like, just back to Boston quickly and a little bit of Cora. But before that, John Henry, man, Breslow deserves all the hate he's getting. I think that guy is a fool, to be honest. But John Henry is a coward. He is an absolute coward. He has not gotten out. They just let a ton of coaches go, and a ton of coaches that apparently are very well liked in the clubhouse. And he does not get in front of a microphone and speak to his fan base or his players. And the report came out, and again, this was from another Red Sox player, that they made it very clear that they are being paid to play baseball and not speak their mind. So the players are feeling like they're just kind of being pushed down. Like, I compare it to years ago, there were some basketball players speaking out, like, politically and basically in some civil rights types of issues. And some people out there in the news world told them to shut up and dribble. And, like, that's as offensive as it gets. Like, you can't have an opinion and use your platform. And this is on a much smaller stage here, as far as, like, this is just the clubhouse, not the world. But to be a baseball player for that organization, and I know you're being paid handsomely to just go play baseball, but to not, it's a 162 game season. Like, you see these guys and you come to this place, like, more than you see your family and more than your home, and you don't get a say or even get to, like, ask some questions. I know Trevor Story said, like, he planned on going to speak to Breslow more. Good for him. I hope he did confront him as a veteran player. Like, no, we're going to need some more information here. And, like, where is this organization headed? But yeah, John Henry's a coward. Craig Breslow is an absolute fool that thinks he knows more than he is. And that's even Stearns. I get it. He was never a player. So I'm not surprised. He kind of has that attitude and is super analytical to a fault, in my opinion. But Breslow played. He played at the top level. The fact that he doesn't have a feel, in addition to the analytics, a feel for, like, how to keep a team together and all that stuff, that blows my mind, how you could play the game like he did at that high level and still seemingly not have a feel for it. But to go back to Cora and back to the Phillies, he and Dombrowski are close, so I'm not surprised Dombrowski was interested. But I'm also not surprised that Cora turned it down, because if he just waits till the end of the year, then he can sit back and really assess all the situations and the opportunities he may have, and also pit these teams against each other to be paid more. It just makes more sense from a business standpoint and probably a success standpoint to see where these teams are. And there might be a lockout, like that might, make it even more of an interesting decision or a prolonged decision. So who knows? I think there's so many unknowns that I think it's smart for Cora to kind of say no for now.
It's amazing how quickly it turns around. I think when you think about the highest of highs, clearly when Cora and the Red Sox win the World Series all those years ago, but you mentioned before the stockpile of prospects they had. It feels like the future of the franchise was so bright. And I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom that it's going to disappear and they'll never win again, but it just shows how quickly it can turn around, especially when you have what seems to be the selfishness of wanting to build it in your image. We talked about this with the Baltimore Orioles last year, where you want to win it your way. And those quotes came out and their front office was insistent on building it in their image, or they'd rather lose, essentially. For Breslow, it almost feels that way as well, that you want obedience from the people there, and you're not going to sit there and take any sort of consenting, or I should say dissenting views like from an Alex Cora. And that is a recipe for disaster. And as we're seeing that play out of the field, you need to have educated discourse about the direction of the team. It's not a dictatorship. It has to be a democracy as far as conversation goes on the image of the team, because the players, outside of skill, we all know they're all professional baseball players. There's a lot of skill in that Red Sox team. The vibes do affect things. And when you're casting this cloud of drama, it's just never ending. And why would you want to go to work every day and play baseball in a place like that when you have a choice of 29 other teams you can sit and realistically play for? It does have a domino effect if people don't want to play in that clubhouse.
Dude, speaking of domino effect, I know this has been pretty well documented, but I think another thing that played into Breslow's decision here is Rafael Devers happens to be playing some of the worst baseball he's ever played in San Francisco right now. So that also made it good timing for him to get rid of Cora, because if he got rid of Cora and Devers is tearing it up, everyone's going to go say, it's not Cora's fault. Look at what Devers is doing in San Francisco, and the Cubs are playing really well with Bregman. But we're not that dumb. Even though Devers is not playing well, look at all the other things, the domino effects of that trade. You trade Devers because you have Bregman there. And some of the guys you got back in that deal are now all other places as well, for the most part. Bregman then is not retained, goes to Chicago. Some of those guys that you got in that initial Devers deal. Let's start with James Tibbs. James Tibbs last year was then flipped to LA for Dustin May, who pitches for you for a couple months, doesn't really do anything of note. And now he goes to St. Louis as a free agent. So he's not even around. Tibbs is out there in AAA for the Dodgers, looking like the next superstar for them, hitting a ton of home runs. Some other names, Kyle Harrison, who you brought over, you then decide to include in the deal to Milwaukee to get Caleb Durbin, which, we're Durbin fans. We've said we like his style of play, but I don't think he's what Boston needed. They needed some bop, not another guy of the Durbin style. And lo and behold, Kyle Harrison is tearing it up in Milwaukee, 12 strikeouts in his last start. So, and there's more to it too. There's a few other guys we could go through as well, but it's as bad as it gets for Breslow. Every kind of button he pushed has been the wrong one. And I'll just say this about Thomson. The Thomson one really caught me by surprise, even though they were playing poorly, because they just extended the dude in December 2025, just a few months back. So that's pretty crazy to extend the guy. And it wasn't a long extension. I believe it was through 2027 or something like that. But it's still pretty crazy. The Cora thing surprised me too, but I guess we just shouldn't be surprised with anything that that front office does now.
So before moving to the meat of the order, did you see the conversation Mendoza had with the New York media today with John Heyman making headlines? With
Heyman saying,
maybe the team's just not good?
Yeah, have you considered the team's just not any good? And Mendoza's response was, "Dang, John."
Yeah, every once in a while, we're not huge John Heyman fans. Arson Judge lost all credibility with what he was doing there, but you got to give him credit there, because that's a tough thing to say when you're
a funny question.
is a funny question, but
it's not so much a question as it is a statement that he wanted to put it out there.
But you know what?
The manager's not going to be like, yeah, you might be right.
Well, and with the truth serum too, a couple beers, you have Cora, Thomson, and Mendoza sitting at a bar somewhere, you get them a little buzzed. I think they all can agree that they are maybe the victim of a lot of circumstances that didn't go their way. Mendoza, this team, as we said before, a lot of odd end pieces, a lot of talent, but a lot of odd end pieces that don't fit together. So you kind of feel for Mendoza a little bit.
Oh, yeah. On paper, I liked it. And I'll say that, even though I'm a big critic of Stearns, like I was eventually able to buy in. I think that's partly a nature of us Mets fans, to be honest. We'll complain, but then we will try to talk ourselves into being optimistic before the season starts because we want to be. And we think if we are optimistic, maybe it'll turn out better. And, it doesn't always work. But the other thing that's come out of this, and we'll get off this topic after this because we talked about it for a while. But today there was some other things. Speaking of Heyman, he put out there that like apparently the Mets would be interested in trading for a big bat. I take zero. I don't think that is even remotely true. Why would they be trading for anything at this moment? But Dombrowski also came out and said he's taken more trade phone calls than he ever has at this point in the season. And then so there's these rumors now that we could get some very, very early trades, which is something interesting to watch for. And just of note, April's almost over, obviously. So we'll see if Mendoza gets added to the April list. It would have to be tomorrow, which after this loss, who knows? Just getting absolutely embarrassed. But I believe there's very rare that guys are fired in April as managers. But I tweeted this out the other day. Back in 2002, four managers were fired in the month of April, which I believe was the all-time high. But it's pretty rare. So to see two of some very high profile teams, and this is the other thing, man, this conversation goes in so many different ways, has so many different arms and legs to it. Like the fact that these big time cities, these big time teams, Boston, New York, Philly, are struggling this much with the payrolls that they have. Like they are poking a gigantic hole in the whole competitive balance argument that would be in favor of a salary cap. Like people want to say we need a salary cap to get the competitive balance back. People are gonna be like, did you see these three moronic teams that would be paying $280-370 million on their payroll that absolutely sucked, got swept by the Rockies? It's a pretty very simple argument if it doesn't get better for those three squads.
Absolutely. It's definitely going to be a conversation going into the offseason. Hopefully this is not the last season of baseball we see for more than 12 months because it feels like it's looming out there. But let's get into the meat of the order and talk about the rest of the news around baseball.
We have the meat.
All right, let's start here with the meat of the order and some positive news here. We love young players here, and we saw Travis Bazzana making his debut today and went 0 for 2 with 2 walks, number 1 overall pick in 2024, including an intentional walk. Wanted to make note of that. Struck out in Cleveland's 1-0 loss to the Tampa Bay Rays. And he wound up batting 7th, immediately stepped in as the Guardian second baseman, replacing Juan Burrito, who was optioned to AAA Columbus. Want to be that clear. I think Cleveland wound up winning the game, actually, now that I'm saying that out loud. Because, I'm sorry. Tampa wound up losing the game in that game. So 3-1.
Tampa won. Well, sorry, Tampa won last. So Bazzana's played 2 games. I think that's
okay. My bad. So they did lose 1-0
last night.
Yeah. Okay.
And then 1 today. He went 0 for 4 with an error as well today.
So looking at just Bazzana, and we can talk. I know the conversation wants to talk about 2024 and the whole class because we're looking at maybe a prolific class throughout the history of baseball. We're looking at a player here that has been highly touted. Came out to Down Under, which was awesome. I think that's Men Without Hats, cool. Or that is an awesome dance and awesome song to have him come up to. Tongue in cheek, obviously being the first overall pick from Australia, and the Guardians did not bring him up to sit. They inserted him in the lineup right away. Stephen Vogt explicitly said the team needed a little jolt, and that might put some pressure on the kid. But every level he's been on, and there's a reason why he's highly touted because we know that the extra base production's out there. We're hoping it turns into home run power. We want this guy to, even at certain levels of baseball, leading the league in doubles and extra base hits. That's a precursor to maybe slugging at the major league level. And we want those doubles to begin to convert into home runs. And we want him to become this high impact offensive player. So I look back at the WBC play he had 2 hits, a home run for Australia, the game against Taiwan. That does look to me like the player he could be in a big moment. He looked like he fit there. That's the thing you and I were texting back and forth, watching Bazzana in the WBC, and even these first 2 games. He feels like he belongs. And that's hard to say. A lot of young players assimilate themselves pretty easily, but he feels like a fish in water. He's comfortable in Cleveland. It feels like he's going to be maybe one of the faces of the franchise that so desperately needs a guy next to Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, no, it's exciting times now because now you have Ramirez flanked by Chase DeLauder and Travis Bazzana as far as, cornerstones of this team. So I do agree with you. Bazzana just looks the part. It doesn't seem like things like this phase him. It still might take him a couple games to kind of get his sea legs a little bit. But I mean, if you're not familiar with Bazzana, he's a guy who has pretty solid raw power, really, really knows the strike zone. I think so far at the professional level has looked a little more like a doubles hitter than a home run hitter. Back in Oregon State, he looked like, he and Charlie Condon back that year before they got drafted, we're just going back and forth home runs seemingly every day. And you got to remember, metal bats completely different to a degree. But Bazzana's a gap-to-gap guy. I see him. I mean, you could talk about ceiling and floor. I think he's a guy with a pretty high floor. I don't know how high the ceiling is. Like, I'm not sure. To me, I like him. Obviously, I rostered him on my fantasy team, and we'll see if I can keep him more if he ends up getting squeezed out by a roster logjam. But I think the floor is pretty safe. I don't know if the ceiling screams like perennial all-star, or maybe he can do that a couple times. We'll see. A guy with defensively very average from what we've seen, has some speed, but he's more so out there for the offensive tool. Again, gap-to-gap guy that knows the strike zone very, very well. So I think if you're the Guardians, you're going to give him a lot of runway. He's a number 1 pick for a reason. So I don't think this is a guy that his first week was bad, let's pull the plug, send him back to AAA. At the same time, he was solid in AAA in the small time he was there. He wasn't like forcing their hand like, oh my God, this guy's hitting 400 and hitting a home run every other day. But that tells me that from the very beginning of the season, they had plans on trying to get him up here rather quickly. And they're right in the mix in that division. No one's running away with that division. I believe they're like a half game behind Detroit or something like that. So I love to see it. This seems to be the timeline nowadays. Like, get drafted in 2024, you're up by 2026. If you look at the history of the 10 first overall picks before Bazzana, it's a mixed bag, but a lot of them debuted within about 2 years or so. With that being said, all because you're the number 1 pick, no guarantees you're going to be some kind of star. If you look at that mix of those last 10, yes, you have Paul Skeens in there in 2023, who obviously, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, amazing. But there's also guys in there like Henry Davis, who has a negative career F4, who was a number 1 pick. You have Brady Aiken back in 2014 by the Astros, who ended up not even signing, then getting drafted by the Guardians once again the year after, and never made it past A-ball. Is now a player agent. You have Jackson Holiday, who shows a lot of promise, but we're still kind of waiting and seeing, and on and on and on. I'm not going to list them all, but it's a very much mixed bag. But I think the more interesting conversation, rather than like, let's look at all the number 1 picks before him, is really the other guys in that draft class, like you said. Absolutely loaded, turning out to be maybe one of the best of all time. I'll list a few of them here that are already in the majors. Bazzana now, Chase Burns, who's absolutely been lighting it up in Cincinnati. Nick Kurtz, obviously, we don't have to tell you about him. Jack Caglione, who we're still kind of waiting for him to really, really get hot. JJ Weatherholt, who's had a fantastic week here, looks the part. Speaking of looking the part, absolutely looks the part. Christian Moore has gotten a taste of the bigs. Connor Griffin, who just hit his second big league home run, I believe, yesterday. Just freshly 20 years old in his bounce house provided by Paul Skeens. Cam Smith, who probably doesn't get talked about enough, absolute stud. Carson Bench, who has looked a bit better, maybe much better these last few days, starting to hit better, has made some really impressive plays in the field. And Trey Savage, who just returned, who we'll talk probably a little bit more about later in the show. But like, that's quite a list of names already. The question, I guess, for fun pod here is, out of that list, when all is said and done, 20 years down the road, who do we look back at from that list currently? Or maybe it's someone that hasn't debuted yet from the 2024 draft. Who do we look at and we say that guy had the best career out of the 2024 draftees?
I have to say it's Nick Kurtz. Looking at the list of players on there, just being rookie of the year already and on the mantle, and he seems to have prolific power. But like you said before, there's a lot of potential in this group because 6 of the top 10 picks from the 2024 draft are already established as regulars, which to me, I mean, that's less than 2 years after the draft. So even when you consider the accelerated timeline, but just that alone, as you mentioned before, all this, the lottery tickets that didn't result in a player, you have 6 of the top 10 picks, and that's only not including the guys that are not here, not debuted. Seaver King of the Washington Nationals, Hagen Smith of Chicago White Sox. There's a lot of talent that is ready to come here. For your questions, Nick Kurtz, but I mean, I love this class because it's rare for all top 10 picks to even reach the majors, let alone establish yourself as regulars. So we're kind of we're in uncharted territory with this group, because if you look at the 2016 draft, that class produced limited high-end WAR. When you look at them, I mean, in the modern bonus pool era that we all kind of operated at this point, it only happened once, which was 2016, and only a handful of times in MLB history. There's like literally a handful. I think there's 5 of them: 2011, 1986, 1984, 1981, and 2012. And I mean, comparing that to the recent drafts, it feels like they're already matching that in 2024 in less than 2 years. It's kind of crazy when you look at how amazing it's been already. You mentioned Charlie Condon, JJ Weatherholt. We didn't mention, by the way, too. This is a guy with the St. Louis Cardinals that could be their franchise player. It's kind of amazing when you think about the amount of players, and maybe it is just the accelerated timelines and just how heavily composed these players are at such a young age. But man, a lot of young talent being infused in baseball, and it starts with this class right here.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult decision when you try to pick just one dude and predict the future there. Kurtz is obviously a good answer with that, ridiculous power and how many home runs he could rack up and how many home runs he's already racked up. Also walking at an absolutely insane rate, so showing lots of patience this year. Chase Burns, the way he's looked, like you could see him as a dominant starter for a long time. I don't think I'd put my money on him just because a guy that throws that hard, you do worry about injury and what kind of role that'll play in his career. Connor Griffin, I think, would be a very, very popular answer. Only 20 years old. He's already up. So what he might be able to, as far as stat wise, might be able to put together, he's got a little bit of an advantage with an early start, and obviously 5-tool dude. I like, for the safe bet, I think I would go Weatherholt, just because I look at him and watch him and feel like this guy is like easy going to be able to put a 10 to 15 year career, just solid, absolutely solid. That's what when I watch Weatherholt, like that's what I feel. And I'm not saying these other guys can. I think a lot of them can. I mean, Trey Savage might be the answer. Think about the experience Trey Savage has already had this early in his career. He made it from A-ball up like 4 levels to Major League Baseball in 1 season last year. Ends up pitching on the absolute biggest stage possible in the World Series and all those moments leading up to it. So like, he might be the answer. Like you could debate this all day, and really there's not a lot of wrong answers here.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact, like, again, I want to reiterate, all 10 picks of the draft making it to the major leagues is rare enough. And we're talking about players that potentially could be superstars, multiple superstars in this draft. Pretty cool to see. And it'll be awesome to grade this down the line and be able to look at these players through a different lens. Let's head here and talk about Elly De La Cruz, guy that you also roster in fantasy baseball. And we had this discussion last year, endless amount of weeks of where did the power go? Where is Ellie's power? It was zapped from him. Now we ask ourselves, is this a true breakout from him or a hot streak? Because when you look at this through the lens of what we expected from Elly De La Cruz, let's start with the production, not including tonight, 29 games played, 291 batting average, 952 OPS, already has 10 home runs, tied for the National League lead with James Wood. I'm not sure if James Wood went yard in the game against the Mets. And dude, for a guy that was not really a powerful hitter last year, he's on pace for 55 home runs, which for the Cincinnati Reds would break George Foster's franchise record of 52. Is he going to get past it? Who knows? But just the fact he's on pace at any point of the season for 55 home runs is a damn good sign. He's adding stolen bases, swiping multiple bags in games, and showing the same speed that led to 67 stolen bases back in 2024. And now when you add that together, this is the player we sat here over a year ago and said, will we see a $1 billion player? Is there a player going to be signing for $1 billion? You and I looked at each other and said, not sure, that's a huge number, but a guy like Elly De La Cruz is kind of changing what a baseball player looks like as far as skill set. And that's what we're doing. He's pulling on a lot of these different strings of making us believe again. The home run in the game that we saw the other night, Terry Francona was talking about it as like everything looks fundamentally sound. It's not like he's accidentally running into balls. Francona's seen a lot of baseball. For him to come out here and say opposite field power is usually, to me and a lot of people that watch baseball, is an indicator that their approach is locked in. So this is not going to be just a hot streak for me. It feels like there's sustainability in here. And add into the fact, the average exit velocity, if you look at his baseball savant page, 95.9 miles per hour, top 1% in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And his expected metrics of whether you look at X slug or hard hit percentage are in the upper tier. Everything for him, underlying performance supports results. And in fact, he may not actually have all the results we're seeing yet. It feels like more is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's always hit the ball hard as hell. That's always been the positive. Barrel, hard hit percentage, all that stuff, exit velocity. The criticisms have been simple, mostly strikeout percentage, whiff, that kind of stuff. Too many ground balls. And then the big one that I really want to talk about that makes me really want to jump on, like, this is the real Elly. Like, he's coming close to reaching his full potential, which is such an exciting thought because he was already a very, very good player, but we knew there's so much more in there. And hearing a guy like Francona say that everything's fundamentally sound like that, that's exciting if you're a Cincinnati fan or a fantasy owner like myself of Elly De La Cruz. So this is the part I wanted to talk about. The other criticism of Elly over the last year or so is he needs to give up the switch hitting thing. He needs to just bat from the left side. He's no good from the right side. Just give it up. And some of the numbers supported that in the past of like, I don't know if he should keep on doing this. So as a right-handed hitter from his debut through the end of last season, he hit 220 from that side in 549 plate appearances. This year as a right-handed hitter, he's hit 353 so far. He had a 278 on base percentage before this year as a right-handed hitter, 329 slug, 607 OPS. Right now, his OPS is 1.212, 1,212 OPS way over 1,000 from the right side. That's a stark difference. And yeah, this year it's only 36 plate appearances, so small sample size, of course, but like eye-opening, yes. 64 WRC plus previous to this year as a right-handed hitter. The average is 100, league average. Like, this is putrid stuff, which is why people were calling for him to stop. This year, 227 WRC plus from the right side. 13 home runs in 549 plate appearances before this year from the right side. He already has 5 from the right side this year in 36 plate appearances. So talking about becoming this complete version of himself, if he can do it, I'm not saying those numbers are going to be sustained the entire year, but even anywhere close, that average it's 353 right now from the right side. Even if that comes down to like 275, you're still looking at a gigantic improvement and like a much more viable hitter from the right side. He looks to be as complete as I've ever seen. He's still striking out at a pretty high clip. I think that's always going to be in his game. He's at about 28%. But with the other numbers, you will take that in the modern day game of baseball. Ground ball percentage is down to 45%, which is still high. But last year was all the way up at 51%. So you do like to see that come down. The pull air percentage is up to 12.5 after being at 9.8 last year. And that 12.5 is closer to the years prior to last year, where the power wasn't kind of disappearing as often as it did last year. Again, I'd want to see the right-handed numbers stick before I call this absolutely positively a true breakout. But I'm sure as hell leaning that way. And part of it's because we've seen Elly make these incremental improvements each year. Like he's not the kind of dude that just relies on his insane athleticism and like, I'm already great. Like he clearly is the kind of guy who is motivated to not just be really good, but I think he wants to be the best player in the game of baseball. And he absolutely could be headed in that direction if this kind of thing keeps up.
Yeah, and let's not forget that last year he dealt with that left quad strain in the second half, which diminished a lot of his production. And he did talk about that. You look at some interviews from him, he talked about adding strength in the offseason, and you're seeing it there. And I mean, he's talking about slowing the game down and wanting to be there, saying all the right things. The defense is still there. He made multiple high-level defensive plays at different spots. 6-4-3 double play on a tough hop he made the other night. So good stuff there. And then the best part of all of it for Cincinnati fans is the Reds are in first place. They lost tonight, but before tonight, they won 10 of their last 13 games. They're hitting for power. So these are not empty production stats. They're going out there and they're all they're playing meaningful baseball. And 12 home runs in the last 4 games, 39 on the season going into tonight, 6th most in MLB. This is not just a guy that's breaking out on a struggling team. This is a guy they're half game up over in a really good division. Like, this division might be the best in baseball this year thus far. And Elly's in the middle of it. And, you want to sit here, we'll go hot streak versus breakout. I think the difference does come down to whether the underlying indicators are going to support the performance. And I do believe, as you said before, all the things underneath it showcase there's a clear reason for the improvement. And it feels like it can stay if all these things continue to check the box. I think health is a main factor here. As we saw, he did struggle with the power last year, but once he got hurt, it was kind of lights out for the season for him. He's got to stay healthy. There's an emphasis on it. And I think we're looking at the elite contact quality is always going to be there as far as being over there. And the opposite field production for baseball fans, it's just exciting to see him throw the ball out that way. And it looks so easy for him. And again, the overall game is going to be impacting wins for him. And he's a competitive dude. You can tell he wants to win. And that's going to kind of fuel the fire when you're seeing, Great American Ballpark filled up, Reds fans rocking their caps around the city. It's something that is kind of built on itself, and it feels like he's right in the middle of it and loves it.
Yeah, man. And your point about like the fact that he's doing this not in an empty stats kind of way, like this is important to his team and the team's record shows it. It's such a good point because last week we talked about whether we think the Reds are real or not. And there's a lot of holes that can be poked in them when you look at their team statistics. Some at the bottom of the league, whether it be team batting average, things like that. So when you're an imperfect team, like talented but imperfect in several ways, you need an aircraft carrier or two like Elly De La Cruz and like Sal Stewart has been so far, and some of the pitching performances to be a good team. It's not impossible to be like clearly imperfect as the Reds are. It's not impossible to be clearly imperfect and still be a playoff team, but you're going to need those superstar level players with superstar performances at the right time. And that's what they've had so far. And again, I know they lost today, right? But that I think there's like a table setter's curse. When we put a team in a rundown for a positive thing, they're winning like they lose. Where the next team we're going to talk about is the Rays because they had won 6 in a row until they lost today. So our apologies to Rays fans because I think it's a curse here.
Yeah, let's talk about the 6-game winning streak. Although it ending, it doesn't really change my evaluation of the team. I think what matters is how the Rays were winning during that stretch and what it says about them over the course of 162. When you close your eyes and think about the Tampa Bay Rays, I'm sure a lot of people have an image of what they believe this team is. This to me feels like there is a sustainable identity driven, whatever that's going to look like. I think this can be a competitive team. We all talked about them being competitive. They're sitting at 18-12. But there are clear indicators in my mind where regression could hit. If you look at them, they're consistent across multiple games. The voices in the clubhouse, the team is being describing itself as scrappy. That's kind of the calling card for them. That's, again, they're pesky. That's the sort of the Rays mentality, whether they say it or not. They're actually vocalizing it this year. They never feel like they're out of it. They're 5-1 in one-run games. They've shown the ability to come back late. That's something that we've gotten used to Tampa Bay historically. Tying games in the 8th, finding go-ahead runs afterward. It speaks to the role clarity. I think Kevin Cash is, like, you want to speak about the managers that got fired. Kevin Cash is definitely leaning into squeezing everything out of this roster, using the full roster situationally, getting guys in for defensive replacements, finding the right at-bats for some guys that are bench players. Ryan Velotti, or Velade, however you say his name, there's a lot of guys on this team that fit the role and they know what they're supposed to be doing. And looking at Tampa Bay and kind of breaking down the numbers of who they've played, they went 12-1 against American League opponents, becoming just the 7th team ever to win 12 of its first 13 games against the AL, which is a note in its own right. You love baseball stats like that. It's a rare stat. They've also won 9 straight games against AL Central teams, and they've homered in 6 consecutive games. They sit at 39 home runs on the season, and I don't think they had a home run today, so that's still right there as far as where it was. And you're a team that's producing enough to support its style of play. But again, you look at some of these other pieces. Steven Matz, is another guy. He's a guy we looked at when he signed.
Yeah.
We have history. He's a Long Island kid. We see him a lot as far as playing in New York. He's doing things right now that I can't imagine we're all going to sit here and think he's going to do what he's doing. He's giving them length. He's bouncing back from poor outings, working 7 innings in the latest start, limiting damage outside of one mistake. So Steven Matz, I feel like that can't continue, but maybe it will. Maybe the Rays unlock something with him. Jonathan Aranda, the power from him. I mentioned Ryan Valade producing at a high level over his last 10 games. Junior Caminero, let's talk about him. This guy is resilient. He came back after the in-game incident. He got hit in the face yesterday. He wants to be out there. This is a superstar player that, again, you can build around, aircraft carrier type of player. But I do believe the volatility will come into this place. The split is the biggest one. They're dominant against the American League. I mentioned the numbers 12-1, but they're just 5-10 against the National League Central. And maybe that's just the quality of the National League Central. But you have to take note that those teams are competitive. Look at the other teams in the American League that they're playing. Kevin Cash called it quirky. He was asked about it. Shout out to the Tampa Bay media asking about it, which, I mean, that is a polite way and maybe realistic. You can't rely on that long term. So that kind of imbalance usually evens out over time. You're not going to win 99% of your games against American League opponents. And that same goes for one-run success. I think we're going to see that even out as well. Teams rarely maintain that pace over a full season. So it's a strength now. You want to win games that you have there, but there will be regression at some point. I think this loss tonight kind of shows that a little bit. They held to just 6 hits, 3-1 they lost, couldn't complete the sweep. On the flip side, I mean, that's a team that's built out and you can bounce back from it. But again, this is a team that you want to see a little bit more from as far as being able to beat the competitive teams like the National League Central. I'm not sure. Do you make anything of that when they're going 12-1 against the American League and 5-10 against the NL Central? Is that more indicative of how good the NL Central has been or how bad the bottom of the American League has been?
So I think I take the NL Central thing with a grain of salt. I do think the NL Central is obviously a very good division. Like all 5 teams are in it, at least so far. It looks like a great division in that way. The stat you gave about starting 12-1 against AL teams, and I guess now with today's loss 12-2 to the Guardians, that's a crazy start against American League teams. And today's loss is against Gavin Williams, who went 7 2/3, no runs, 5 hits, 9 strikeouts. The dude has been mostly fantastic. And to me, I've posted about him on Twitter. I'm sure I've talked about him on here. I just feel like Gavin Williams is going to be a name as a pitcher we're saying for a very long time as a guy that's a top echelon pitcher. So not a bad guy to lose to. But I'm kind of with you here as far as how we're thinking of the Rays long term. If you peel back the curtain a little bit, team OPS is 709, which is 13th in the league. So like they're in the top half. I thought they would really struggle in that department, like other than Caminero and Jonathan Aranda, where is the rest of the power coming from? But I mean, having a 709 team OPS, and a lot of that comes from good on base percentage for this team. That caught me by surprise. They don't strike out a lot, 221 strikeouts on the year, which is 3rd best for an offense. Walks 103, 21st. So, you know, not killing it with the walk. 34 stolen bases, 2nd in the league. So that's part of their game for sure. And then on the pitching side, 4.08 team ERA, which is 15th. So they're right in the middle of the pack. 1.24 whip is 7th in the league, which is, you know, very solid. 223 batting average against, which is 5th in the league. So teams are not necessarily hitting great against this Tampa Bay Rays pitching staff. Defensively, and this is what worries me, as far as being one factor that could bring them back down a little bit, minus 10 OAA as a team, 28th in the league. So rough as far as that goes. The DRS is a little better if you prefer defensive runs saved. 6 as a team, which is 11th in the league. So maybe if you're a Rays fan, you want to look at that one instead. But I'm similar to you. You named a couple guys that I really like as well. Players like Junior Caminero, Jonathan Aranda. Throw Yandy Diaz in there, who probably doesn't get talked about enough. Chandler Simpson, obviously bringing a super dynamic type of game to his team. They're winners. They just feel like winners, guys that are going to get every ounce of the talent out of themselves. To go back to Yandy, there were some rumors in the offseason when we didn't know if Pete Alonso was coming back to the Mets or not. There was at least one rumor out there that, like, if they let Alonso walk, they could see Yandy Diaz being the replacement. Maybe David Stearns calls them up. Yandy Diaz has been rumored as a guy that the Rays are going to trade off for years. And it's because they usually do trade guys like him off after spending a certain amount of time with the organization. But they've kept him, and it's been a smart move. When I heard those rumors as a Met fan about Diaz maybe being the replacement, to me, I was like, that feels like an underrated. I mean, no, sorry, that feels like an underwhelming replacement for Pete Alonso. And man, was I wrong looking back now. Now, I don't know if it was even realistic because Yandy doesn't even play first anymore. He DHs for the Rays. And I don't think he's a particularly good defensive first baseman. But now I look at, as a Met fan, the situation we're in at first base, which is as bad as it gets. And I look at what Yandy is doing offensively. And I'm like, I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. I think Yandy, honestly, is maybe one of the most underrated players in the majors. If you look at him this year, he's third in FWAR among all designated hitters. He's hitting 324, an 896 OPS, a 151 WRC plus. If you look further back, go for all DHs from 2023 till now, Yandy's fourth in FWAR, only behind Aaron Judge, who probably really shouldn't be on there. He's not a true DH. I know when he had the toe stuff, he spent more time at DH, but like not a true DH. Shohei Ohtani and Yordan Alvarez. Those are the only guys ahead of him on the DH list. I'll ask you this. Where do you think Yandy falls from 2023 to now in FWAR among all offensive players? If you just had to throw out a random guess, which I know is a super difficult guesstimate to make.
All offensive players in baseball, just American League?
Yeah. No, all offensive players in Major League Baseball for the last, 2023 to now. So that's 3 seasons plus whatever we've played so far.
I'll take a stab and say 17.
Oh, okay. You went really high. He's 41st, which I thought, to me, like to be a
I thought it was going to be an
50
outlier stat of like because I saw some stat. People were posting clips of him and posting some numbers in short bursts of being like, this is the one guy who just slugs and we don't talk about him.
It's true. He's so solid, and he does have those streaks of just being like he goes from solid to like really damn good and carrying the team a little bit. But even 41st, when you think about it, to be in 41st in FWAR amongst all offensive players, and he's played so much DH where, then you don't have the fielding FWAR either added in. Like, it's impressive. I don't know if everyone thinks of him as a top 50 offensive player, but he very much is. And then just to go a little further into the team itself, Nick Martinez, who I mentioned earlier in the show about on my roster and not sure if I want to hold him or let him go after he's been so solid. He's another guy. You named Steven Matz, maybe not doing as much as he's doing now down the road. Nick Martinez, solid pitcher, has bounced around. I think thought of as a guy who will give you innings. Sometimes he might get crushed, but other times he'll throw a gem or two. He currently owns a 1.70 ERA. We're going to do the sub-2 ERA crew like we always do, and his name is in there. The expected ERA, though, is 3.81, a difference of more than 2. Like, that's big. That shows you there's some luck involved here. Another thing that shows you luck, left on base percentage, super high, 91.5%. That's not going to hold. You're not holding 91.5%, leaving them on base. His previous career high in that department was 80.8%. Last year, he was 68.5%. I will say he gets lots of soft contact. I just don't think that's sustainable. The combination of Martinez, Matz, who you named, Drew Rasmussen, McClanahan, who's had his moments, has been really solid. The last report on Ryan Pepio, who they'd love to have back, is that he's not progressing as they had hoped. So that's a little disappointing there. My expectation, I think, with everything considered, they're clearly better than I thought they'd be. They're another team I missed the mark on in preseason predictions. I think I had them last in the AL East. So I think they'll hang around the wild card race. I think they're better than I thought. I'm just not convinced they're a true contender. And I do think there are some weaknesses that might kind of be shown a little more than they're shown right now as we go through the season.
For sure. And I saw firsthand the Yankees going into the Trop and just being swept. And this is a really good Yankee team that had me for a second being like, is this going to be this Jekyll and Hyde team? No, they just played a team that had their number. And the formula of what they used to beat the Yankees is what has worked so far this season in their 11 losses. And it's good pitching and also being able to have situational hitting. And that's what's kind of been when the Yankees do lose, as we saw today, 3-0 loss to Texas and in a game that probably a lot of people weren't watching because it was early in the day. But these are the games they wind up losing. And you kind of have to be impressed with what Tampa has done thus far, as you kind of noted before, in a spot playing some good teams, but also winning the games they're expected to. And let's not forget the bump that we don't know exactly how much they're getting from returning to the Trop, because we know they played at George Steinbrenner Field and a minor league facility. Coming back home to the Trop, the stadium plays way different than they did in Tampa proper with George Steinbrenner Field. So let's continue that conversation with them down the line and keep an eye on them. But let's head into what's the word right now and have a conversation about some of the players that we were mentioning. All right, so for what's the word here, we have one word to give him, and we can give ourselves a little leeway and have some conversations. But let's start with Cam Schlittler. And for the context, everyone out there, if you've been sitting and residing under a rock, he's not just having a good stretch. This is a guy who feels like he potentially could be the ace of the Yankees. The performance is there, the profile's there, the consistency starting to match it. We're watching some numbers and pulling some stats of baseball. People are tweeting during his starts of like some crazy numbers. But the most recent outing is what I want to talk about. 6 shutout innings, 3-2 win over the Texas Rangers, striking out 8, walking 2, pitching duel against Jacob deGrom. His ERA now sits at 1.51 on the season. Going head-to-head with a 2-time Cy Young winner was a test, one of the best pitchers of the decade, and standing toe-to-toe with him. And he did not shrink under the moment. There's been a lot of moments that in his early test, you go back to the wild card start against the Boston Red Sox where he rose up to the moment. Every other test, he's kind of passed with flying colors. And the underlying numbers through 7 starts, 41.2 innings pitched, 49 strikeouts, only just 6 walks, only 7 runs allowed, earned runs. He's some of the overlays of pitching. I know Pitching Ninja posted a GIF of him today where just the movement on the ball seems insane. Out of nowhere, this guy, give credit to the Yankee scouting department, give Yankees credit for developing the arm. He's made 2 starts over the last 7 days alone, thrown 14 innings, allowed just 1 earned run, struck out 13. He's been dominant. And my word is frontline for him. And I almost went with command because what separates him is only the 6 walks. But I think he's not just this stuff-driven pitcher that we're looking at, a guy that, he has this crazy stuff. It's there. He's overpowering hitters, and he's also controlling the pace of the game, which you usually don't see for a player as young as he is. So my word is frontline.
That's a good one. I'm going with the word bravado. I just watched this guy, and I think that's the word that came to mind over the last couple of days. Like, he has this bravado about him, and the numbers are amazing. And I was excited about him going into the year, and some people were kind of tempering their expectations just because, let's see what he does in a full year with a full workload. Like, he might not just be that dominant guy you saw against Boston in the playoffs, because now he's going to get this full workload in the major leagues. And he's shown it's not too much for him. And we've seen it, that swagger, that bravado from that start in Boston, not afraid to talk a little trash and yap back at the fans, whether it be on social media or out loud. And those are, that he came from the Boston area too. And then you called it out yesterday in our chat where I guess they challenged a strike call against him, and he didn't even wait for the call, just walks off the mound. He just has that bravado about him, and you love to see it, kind of a throwback in that manner. And it's one thing to have that and then go get lit up and you look at your ERA and it's 5. That's a false bravado. But when you can have this kind of swagger and back it up with an unbelievable top tier performance as the year goes on, that's legitimate bravado out there. So I'll go with bravado here.
And fair or unfair, on his resume, a lot of Yankee fans are putting on the fact that he got Alex Cora and 5 other coaches fired with his 8 innings pitched, 1 earned run against Boston. So he got the last laugh after all that was said and done. Lesson learned, Boston. Don't talk shit to Cam Schlittler's family. He comes out and he's going to hold a grudge against you guys. It'll be fun to watch down the line every time he pitches against Boston. Seeing him at Fenway was magical. I wanted him so badly to go complete game, but 8 innings, 1 earned. I'm sure Lee will take that.
Take it.
Speaking of another electric young pitcher, let's talk about Trey Savage back from the IL. And against the Red Sox, wasn't as dominant as we saw in the postseason, the one he had against the Yankees, of course, that I'm referencing. Against Boston, 5 1/3, no runs, strikeouts just 3, keeps his pitch count to 74. By my count, we didn't see the wipeout slider like last year, but the result was the same, 0 runs last season. You mentioned before the stage he played on, hard to match that. My word is exciting to have him back. So just exciting. This is a different challenge for him. I think this is why the start was important to be excited as a Blue Jays fan, because this wasn't his A game. The splitter wasn't dominant. The strikeout count was low. He wasn't blowing hitters away. He was locating, and he still was able to get out there and get outs. And that does, when you have the ability to last in your B game, when you're not as dominant, that does determine whether a pitcher can stick in the league for 10 plus years and be a guy that can last. So when he was off, he still was pretty damn good. 74 pitches, no runs, strikes out just 3, and was able to go out there. So I'm excited. The comments, this is again a guy that, he talked about breaking bats is a thing that we see from him, because he says that's just as good as a strikeout. I mean, he's not a guy just looking for swinging strikes. He doesn't have to go out there and just look flashy. He wants weak contact. He wants efficiency. He wants to stay ahead of hitters. And maybe that's a guy that we're looking at maybe ahead of his time, similar to Cam Schlittler.
Yeah, and my word is uplifting here. I mean, the Blue Jays, well documented, came into this year with extremely high hopes after the way the year ended for them last year. And they have just been absolutely murdered with injuries. It's like getting comical over there of how many guys have gone out for them, like important pieces. So to start getting them back little by little is uplifting, and none more than your young ace and Trey Savage out there. So that had to be a sight for sore eyes there. You get George Springer back today. You hope this continues. Jose Barrios, who's had a mixed bag in his rehab starts, but like he can come help the rotation soon, it sounds like, as well. And hopefully this just keeps on coming and you get healthier. The Blue Jays still, if they can get mostly healthy, should still be a very good team. They're trying to keep their heads above water right now, and they'll have some ground to make up. But an expanded playoff field, you just want to get your name in the bracket. And then if you're healthy going into the bracket, which is months and months away, everybody's got a shot. And if it's a healthy Toronto club, regardless of how many wins they end up with after all these injuries, if they can squeeze in the playoffs, if they're healthy in the playoffs, it's dangerous. What they did in the regular season won't matter. So I think that's the goal for them. So yeah, seeing you Savage back, Springer back, definitely a bit uplifting for them.
So our last what's the word is Mason Miller. Get Paul Heyman in here. The streak is over. His run stops at 34 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings, which ranks as the 8th longest by relievers since the year of 1961. And go through the names. I don't have to. You know the tier, the fact that he's been able to do what he's done, and just the eye test. So just to lay it out, I was watching. I am the proud fantasy owner of one Mason Miller. Comes in the 9th with a 4-run lead, normally automatic for him, immediately gets thrown into a kind of a messy situation, a borderline fair ball. Again, don't want to blame it on the umps. He has to overcome. Looked foul, starts the inning, back-to-back singles, suddenly bases loaded, nobody out. You knew it wasn't really going to be the Mason Miller we're used to. And the situation kind of spiraled from there. From there, ground out ends the streak as if the run, wild pitch brings in another run. And now the time runs alive. He winds up getting out of it. But my word is human. He does reset. As I mentioned, Trey Savage being able to overcome adversity, strikes out Alex Bregman with a 90-mile-per-hour slider to end the game. And that is the difference between a guy riding a streak and another guy that can actually, all right, I have to be able to not just dominate and blow things past. You zoom out for it, it's sustained. We know how good he is. No one's looking at him any differently for giving up those runs. 37 2/3 innings since joining San Diego, only 4 runs allowed, 73 strikeouts out of the 133 batters he's faced in San Diego. Even more telling was the first time since June of last season he allowed 3 or more base runners in an outing. So my word is human, but barely.
Yeah, he barely is correct. I cheated a little bit, as I usually do on at least one of them. I used like a little bit of a phrase more than a word, but mine was a matter of time. I think this guy is unbelievable. He's got some of the best stuff we've ever seen, if not the best, from a closer. But it's still baseball. You're going to have a night like that. Those streaks are meant to end eventually. So I thought it was a matter of time. And who knows, he could turn around next time out and start a whole new streak where he breaks his own going forward. Like that would not shock
tonight
me.
Too. Pitched tonight,
Okay.
Struck out one guy, walked one, but it was a clean slate. No runs scored. So starting it out here. Let's see what happens. But let's head to Devin's favorite segment. I'll let him lead the way. Let's hit the organ and get to the sub 2 ERA club. Let's say that again. Sub 2 ERA club. Easy for me to say, pal. Sub 2 ERA crew. Let's do it, Devin. Let me know who's in that crew still.
All right, the sub 2 ERA crew here. We need it presented by somebody, right? I feel like when you have these segments, I just want to say presented by, but it's not presented by anybody. It's presented by us.
Matt from Extra Cooler, our good friend Matt Russick, he's creating drops for all these things for us. So I'm willing, if you're listening out there, Matt, we'd love a sub 2 ERA crew brought to you by, let's just say Arby's.
We have the meat.
I don't know if Arby's wants to pay us.
Sub 2 though, it needs like something like some kind of frozen drink or something like sub 2, something cold.
Okay.
We'll work on that. But the sub 2 ERA crew here presented by nobody at the moment. These are your guys. It's as small as it's been. This is usually what happens to the crew as the season goes on. Gets a little smaller, and then eventually down the road it dissipates. But Jose Soriano finally looked human in his last start. With that being said, he is still by far the lowest ERA on this list, 0.84. So he is still in the front of the pack here. Cam Schlittler, who we just waxed poetic about just a few minutes ago, comes in next at 1.51. Nick Martinez, who we also talked about, and sounds like we don't think he's going to stay here for all that long, but he's at least visiting. Nick Martinez, 1.70 ERA. Parker Messick, who has been just unbelievable for the Guardians and quickly becoming a fan favorite in Cleveland, 1.73. Clay Holmes, 1.75. Mets fans are already talking about what can we get back for Clay Holmes. I mean, if he keeps on pitching like this, I think you could get a pretty nice package back based on what the going rate for starting pitchers has been these last couple of years in trades. Bryce Elder, 1.95. He's still in there. And Davis Martin, new to the crew out of the Chicago White Sox. I don't know, since we started the Tablesetters program, I don't think we've ever had a White Sox pitcher amongst the sub 2 ERA crew. So welcome, Chicago White Sox and Davis Martin, 1.95 there. On the periphery, just some footnotes right now. Jacob deGrom is just barely missing in this group, 2.01, and Max Fried not very far away either at 2.09. But as of now, it looks like we have just 7 guys in the sub 2. And as I always do, that's quite an interesting list. Like, you would not put those guys, most of them, in there, other than maybe Schlittler, I guess. Maybe some people would guess that he'd be there. The others are quite some names there. But I ask you, out of those 7, who's sticking around for a while, and who do you think won't be there by this time next week?
I mean, Cam, I think, is staying, as we said before. I love Davis Martin. I don't want to sit here and give away my red hot ice cold, but Davis Martin's on my list. I love what he's been able to do. And this is the kind of pitcher that you have the ability to see the underlying skills and see why the development is there and why you can't always predict baseball. No one had Davis Martin being as good as he's been thus far this year. Same thing with Jose Soriano. It's nice to see. Feels like Jose Soriano is sort of evening it out, but he's still very good. And it's not, he was never going to pitch the same way he was pitching in the beginning of the year, but he's a guy that has underlying skills that you have to be excited about if you're an Angels fan, because they desperately need a frontline ace.
For sure. And I hope he keeps it up there. All right, let's go to the polls. This one should be presented by like some kind of strip club or something like that, right?
Presented by the guy that was so angry that you were even asking about April MVPs.
You saw that?
It's April.
It's April ... Yeah, so presented by that guy or a local strip club or something like that, since it's the polls. So we got to work on these sponsors. Okay. We got the polls. We need a sponsor there, and then for the sub 2, we need something cold, some kind of frozen drink, maybe the Blizzard or something like that. We'll see if they can work on those.
On Long Island, well, I mean, for the general population, the Long Island establishments are kind of rough, for being honest. They've changed names a bit, but I'm sure maybe they're looking for some publicity. Maybe we can be brought to you by them. I'm not sure.
Do you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite. I just know that there's one in Bohemia called the Landing Strip, I believe. I think they changed the name. It used to be Forbidden Fruit.
Oh, that changed. Wow.
Let me see, because it's right near the airport, so like they think it's funny that they're calling it the Landing Strip. Maybe
honestly, kind of funny.
Actually,
you look it up. You look it up while I go through these polls.
It's in land. Well, don't Google images of Landing Strip, by the way, because it's a thing.
Oh yeah, apparently. That's not where. What do you mean it's a thing? Apparently.
Oh, I don't know. It's a thing, I guess. I don't know.
You're playing dumb over there. All right.
Oh yeah, this is actually, it's called Forbidden Fruit presents the Landing Strip.
Oh, wow. We got a whole percent. That's like Dodger Stadium, or no, Uniqlo Field at Dodger Stadium. You see they're doing that now?
Yeah, the Los Angeles Angels are forbidden fruit of the landing strip. Anyway.
All right. Well, there's no transition into this after that. We're going to the 2 polls here that we put up this week, and they're pretty simple ones. The whole premise is, as of now, if the season ended today, I know it's early, guys. If the season ended today, hypothetical, who would the AL MVP be? And remember, guys, on Twitter, unfortunately, I can only put 4 choices in. So I do my best to go with 4 that I think deserve those spots. You're not necessarily going to agree with my choices all the time, but you do get to vote or write something in the comments. The choices I gave here were Yordan Alvarez, Ben Rice, his teammate Aaron Judge, and Munetaka Murakami. And I thought this was a very interesting group to select from. And eye-opening poll. Yordan got 48% of the vote. I do think that's the right answer, personally, based on the domination he has shown, even though the team is kind of in the gutter as a whole. Ben Rice got 19%. This is the other part that's eye-opening. Aaron Judge got 0%. When was the last time Judge got 0% in an MVP poll? And then Murakami got 33%. That might be a little bit more like not Mr. Right, but Mr. Right now. I don't know. What do you think of those results?
For the Judge piece, I didn't realize he got 0%, but it's not like he's playing poorly. He's right up there at the league lead in home runs. I think he's on pace for 65 home runs right now. But again, the flavor of the week, the month, etc., is some of the names in there. Yordan Alvarez can't deny. Like he's been the best overall hitter in baseball. Murakami's been exciting, but just look at all of the numbers as far as the full picture of Alvarez. He is the MVP if it did end. If we have a 1-month MVP, and I'm sorry, the guy out there that quote tweeted you, dude, we got a pod. We're having conversations about it. Enjoy life a little
content.
bit.
Right.
Yeah. Yordan Alvarez is my MVP. So I wasn't shocked to see that he led the vote.
He's probably fun at parties, though, that guy. Anyway, we're going to go over to the NL. Same poll. If the season ended today, which of these 4 guys would most deserve National League MVP honors? The choices here were Nico Horner, Matt Olson. And honestly, I struggled because like Matt Olson is up there at the top of a lot of leaderboards, F4, that kind of stuff. But like his teammate Drake Baldwin kind of deserves recognition. But I just put the one brave, Matt Olson, Elly De La Cruz, who we talked about earlier, and Corbin Carroll, who it doesn't even look like he ever hurt his hamate. But the results here, Horner got 41%. I was pretty surprised. Not saying he doesn't deserve it. I just thought people would overlook him a bit. Matt Olson, just 18%. Elly, 24%. Corbin Carroll, 17%. So Horner wins the poll. And there was a comment or two calling for James Wood to be a choice. And I reminded that person, like, yeah, I agree. He probably should be in the mix based on some of the numbers he has. And there's probably 2 or 3 other guys also, but we're limited to 4 choices. I know Horner's been great. And we even had a segment on this show last week of like, we spent 15 minutes talking about Nico Horner and like, if he keeps this up, should he be in consideration for MVP? Can a player like the type of player that he is, can he win an MVP, or does it have to be like the masher that puts up 50 home runs? So we're not hating on Horner. I don't think he should have won this poll. I really think as of now, it should be Elly De La Cruz. And part of it goes back to the value, that word value, most valuable. And this has always been a debate of like, what should the MVP be? The counting stats or who's legitimately most valuable to their squad? Where would the Reds be without Elly De La Cruz? I know Sal Stewart's killing it. I just think they'd be a completely different team. So he's the guy I'd vote for, but I get the Nico Horner vote as well. What your thoughts on that poll, those 4, anyone else that should have been in there?
Can't argue with anything you just said. And for the Nico thing, I heard some of the Cubs broadcasts and a lot of people discussing Nico almost an extension, not taking credit for our conversation, but it felt validating when everyone's saying, if you have a situation that you need a big hit, Nico's the guy you want up. And that was kind of in lieu of everything we talked about in the rearview mirror. So us saying that Nico potentially would be this MVP candidate early in the season isn't as controversial as I originally thought. That's one of my original really first thoughts when we had that conversation. The other guy I want to put some love on, I know you put Matt Olson as a Brave, but I also want to put some love on Drake Baldwin as well for what he's done as well.
Yeah.
But James Wood, Elly De La Cruz, can't go wrong with that as well. And Sal Stewart, you mentioned him by name. Jordan Walker, again, is another guy that we look at as potentially being...
He's fallen off a little bit lately. Just a little bit. He's fallen off.
Sure, but the numbers are still sort of staggering as far as what James Walker has done in the past. And hopefully it continues as far as just because it's been a very good story. And again, I understand he can't play defense. He can't get out of a paper bag, but O'Neal Cruz offensively has been awesome. I'm not sure if you can make the case.
Dude,
that
that
guy
foul pole home run off the top is like they say, like you go to the ballpark, you never know what you might see. Like you'll see, I've watched a billion baseball games and you still turn on the games and turn on big inning. And like, if you watch long enough, you'll see something you've never seen. I couldn't believe when I saw that replay that it went off the top of the foul pole. That's crazy.
I just don't like with O'Neal Cruz. I don't want to start a whole polarizing conversation about him, but I don't know if we've ever seen a player as bad as they are defensively and as good at the same time offensively.
Yeah.
And then they continue to trot him out in the outfield because they have to. And this is like a world where the NL does have the DH. It's a weird, it's like almost like they're seeing something like we know he can play better defense. I don't know though. It's really rough out there. And there's been moments where he's looked okay, but for the most part, those highlight reel plays, they're some of the worst defense you'll ever see in your life. Are you looking up his defensive run saved? And
I'm not. I was looking up something else. But go ahead. We could look those up as well. I mean, I don't even know if we need to. I think people have seen.
No, I mean we know.
It's been pretty brutal.
But just offensively, it's amazing because it's not like it's affecting his play on the field. It's like he can just make all these blunders in the outfield and then find a way to just smash the ball. It kind of speaks to where baseball is sometimes in 2026. You can be horrid, but they'll find a place on the diamond for you.
So this is what I was trying to look up, and I think this is so notable. And this was a few days ago now that we put this out there, so the stats might have changed slightly. But best and worst left-handed hitters against left-handed pitching according to OPS this year. The best, Yordan Alvarez. There's that name again. An OPS of almost 1,500. As a lefty against a lefty. Like that's like unheard of. Corbin Carroll, 1,283. Ben Rice, 1,262. Colson Montgomery, 1,246. O'Neal Cruz, 1,154. The reason that is notable, top 5 left-handed hitter versus left-handed pitching this year. Last year, he was literally the absolute worst left-handed hitter versus left-handed pitching. If you look at OPS, he had an OPS of 400, a WRC plus of 18 against left-handed pitching last year. So like talking about a guy who's made strides in certain situations, we talked about Elly from the right side. O'Neal Cruz, if he can keep that up, I mean, he goes to the next echelon offensively. And just quickly, the Jordan Walker thing is interesting because it's not like he's terrible the last week or so, but one thing people have noticed that's a little bit of a concern, and because it was a prior issue for him, he's hitting the ball on the ground a ton again, and that's always been an issue that's held him back. So it'll be very interesting to see if he's come far enough to now snap out of that and kind of find it again, or if he had it, lost it, and now falls back into some old issues. So that's something to watch for because he was as red hot as anybody the first several weeks of the season.
Yeah, he hasn't hit a home run since April 13th by my count, so that's a problem as well. He was torrid in the beginning of the year, and the power seems to be dried up a bit. Had some extra base hits, of course, but I thought we were potentially seeing the breakthrough of the power, and hopefully, like you said before, we can continue to see him because he was playing really well, and compare that with JJ Weatherholt and having sort of this core of Cardinals players, it changes the trajectory of the franchise. But let's get into red hot, ice cold and talk about the other players around baseball. All right, red hot, ice cold, and some of the names we discussed, I have a feeling will come up. I guess I'll start with Davis Martin. You mentioned him in the sub-2 ERA. You asked if I think he can be there. Just over his last 12 innings, 1.5 ERA, 14 strikeout, just 2 walks. Similar to what I'm saying with Cam Schlittler. He's keeping guys off base, 1 earned run, a whip of 1.25. And the strikeout number jumps out to me. 14 punch outs in 12 innings. And what really stands out to me as well is the control. Only 2 walks tells you that he's not just missing bats. He's attacking hitters. He's staying ahead in counts. And he's a guy that if you have the baseball package and you're looking for someone to watch pitch and you haven't seen him pitch, I understand he plays in Chicago. He's with the White Sox. They're not supposed to be very good. Make this appointment viewing. Check out Davis Martin, just one of his starts, and kind of see what you think. Looking at the underlying numbers is one thing, but watch him. He's on a serious run right now, and it's the kind of stretch that really shows who he can be as a pitcher. Will it last the full season? Again, who knows? But I'm saying for right now, tune in and check out Davis Martin.
Yeah, definitely a guy who deserves a shout out. 2 shout outs here at Tablesetters tonight. Good for him. Like to get the White Sox on the show a little bit here. Murakami, Davis Martin, like let's keep it coming here. I'm going to go with Spencer Torkelson. Had a big time power drought to start the year. Was like one of the last qualified hitters left without a home run. And then this week he hit a home run in 5 straight games. That's a nice way to get off the schneid there. 9 for 25 for the last week of play, which is good for an average of 360 during that time. 5 home runs, as I said, 3 doubles, 6 RBIs in the last 7 days. So good for Torkelson helping the Tigers along. I mean, Riley Green has been unbelievable this year, but everybody needs some help, and it's nice to see Torkelson pitch in there. I'll give you my other one, and then I'll bounce back to you for your other hot one before we go to cold. Landon Roop absolutely deserves a shout out somewhere here. He has quietly been one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball this year for the San Francisco Giants. That's probably part of why we haven't heard his name as much as we should, because the Giants have been not so great. A 2.55 ERA on the year, 0.91 whip. The expected ERA is 2.48, so this looks real according to that. No one's really talking about him. Has not given up a barreled ball all year long.
Wow.
Zero barrels. Does not get a ton of chase or whiff, but the K percentage ain't bad. 27%, which is good for the 76th percentile. Limits hard contact, gets lots of ground balls. One pretty cool note, no one has more horizontal movement on their curveball than Roop does. He's number 1 from the side-to-side movement on the curveball. Batters are hitting 163 against the curve, just 114 against the sinker. The sinker, in fact, I always like to look at run value to really see, like, not just what pitchers, what specific individual pitches are dominating from year to year. His sinker is high up there, has a run value of 7 this year, which if I pull up the list here, there's 2 pitches that have a run value of 8. Shohei Ohtani's 4-seam fastball, Tyler Rogers' sinker. Those are both a run value of 8. And then you have Gossman's 4-seam fastball at 7, Clay Holmes and his sinker at 7, Justin Robleski, who's been great, probably deserves to be in this too. 4-seam fastball at 7, Cam Schlittler, fastball at 7, Chase Delander, another guy who's really started to find it, 4-seam fastball at 7, and then you get Landon Roop's sinker at 7. A couple other guys have some pitches there at 7 as well. So, like, he's making some significant waves there. I think he's here to stay. He looks like breakout season is upon us for Roop.
Sure, yeah, and I think a lot of people are taking note of him over there in San Francisco. On my end, I'm going to stick with the NL West, and it's Ildemaro Vargas from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he went 2 for 5 today. So I'm only baking in the numbers before this, so I put my notes together for this. But 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 6 hits, and 20 at bats. You can add 2 more to that. So even 8 hits and 25 at bats over the last. I mean, he's not just getting on base, he's doing damage when he connects. 3 home runs, slugging percentage that's sitting up there. The run production's there. He's driving in 9, scoring 8. And I mean, for him, limited at bats, and he's making the best of every time he's on the field. And he's on a heater right now. This is a guy, when you look at the full line of, I think you said it in our chat, of who's this guy. And I follow MLB home runs and MLB lineups on Twitter, and I have the notifications go off. So I think I said this last week. Every home run that happens, I get a notification, and I follow another account, which shortly after posts the video of it, post how many ballparks it would have been a home run in, the exit velocity, all that, all the good stuff. And the numbers are legit. And you see his name popping up a whole bunch of times over the last couple of days, 3 home runs and 9 RBIs. I'm just like, who is this guy? Taking note, and obviously playing alongside Perdomo and Carroll on my team. So I have the ability to kind of benefit from this hot streak. We saw Travis wind up picking up Vargas. We'll see if it lasts. He ranks 38th right now in points in our head-to-head league. Great. So it's been cool to see, and it's been fun to watch some of these names out there that maybe we won't see him at the top, 50 at the end of the year, but still cool to see some of these stories. And you don't know who catches on. Maybe something clicks. It's like a journeyman type of player that seems to fit really well in Arizona.
Yeah, how about Carlos Cortez for the Athletics, who the Mets just let go like he was nothing, all becoming, all of a sudden looking like a superstar. We could throw him in there too, but let's go over to the ice cold stuff here. Not to be negative, but we do have to call this out as well. I'll give you my 2 quick, and then you can give me yours. Owen Casey, who started off looking pretty nice for the Marlins. You got to remember he is still a super young player, right? So not a surprise he's going to go through streaks like this. But over the last 2 weeks, he has a strikeout rate of 48.8%. Not what you want to see. Minus 9 WRC plus, 163 on base percentage. He's really having a hard time right now, struggling. So hopefully Casey can snap out of it, but that's a tough one. Not a great look. Aaron Nola is my other guy. Over the last 3 weeks, which has been 4 starts for him, no one has been worse than Aaron Nola. 7.65 ERA in that time. The expected ERA over that time was 5.29. So he's got some bad luck, but 5.29 ain't very good either. For the season, he's got a 6.03 ERA, a 1.56 whip. Listen, man, this is the second bad year, like really bad year in a row for Nola. And it doesn't get better for Philly fans because the almost 33-year-old is making $24.5 million this year and is still signed for 1, 2, 3, 4 more seasons after this one at the same price per year. Also has a full no trade clause. So not great for Nola there.
We talk about who's cold being Aaron Nola. Who's hot is Aaron Nola's agent being able to negotiate that deal. Hell
Well
yeah.
done. Well done.
For that guy. I have one guy here because I could have put pitcher in here. I was going to put Jack Leiter and talk about how he's been struggling. I think I did that last week, but I'm going to stick with one hitter here, and it's Matt Chapman. Tough stretch right now for the veteran player. And over the last 7 days, a 158 batting average, but most notably, no home runs, no RBIs, 2 hits and 19 at bats, 9 strikeouts. His on base is 33.33, or I should say 0.333, and he's still drawing some walks. And I think the lack of impact is the issue. No extra base damage, a guy that has no run production, a high strikeout total. And again, maybe the timing's off. They were postponed today, so you didn't get a chance to sort of right that wrong. We know that he's a player that kind of finds his way. He's a veteran player, as I said. He finds a way to impact the baseball games when it matters. But San Francisco Giants need him, and he's right now very cold. So keep an eye on Matt Chapman. I know fantasy circles have him as a player that a lot of people probably put some stock into him. You know, and for Yahoo, 88% rostered. He's the guy you're expecting way more from. He did draw 2 walks on Monday. Maybe that's him coming around, but you know, and he's getting on base in that way. But you're expecting power from this dude, and he's pretty cold in that regard.
Yeah, whole Giants offense the entire year, let's be honest, has been pretty anemic. I mean, Willie Adames, I think I almost put on my ice cold player, so you could put him right alongside there with Chapman. It's been a tough look. So you have a guy like Landon Roop out there pitching his ass off, but the offense has to come around at some point.
The other thing I want to say about the ice cold is just maybe MLB and their PR stuff. How the hell do we not know that the Mexico City series is happening? I was watching MLB Network.
Yeah. No publicity.
And no publicity. They're
Nothing.
just having it. And it's San Diego. It's Arizona having a game. They're in Mexico doing their thing, the World Tour situation. And we follow baseball as closely as possible. I only knew the series was happening when they were showing the highlights of the 2-game set. How is that possible?
Do you remember the NFL Mexico game a few years ago that was like one of the best watches of all time? Rams, I think it was the Jared Goff Rams against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and it was just like, I don't know what it was like. It was like 50-45 or something, just like watching a game of Madden, like just no defense, but amazing offense. One of the most entertaining games you'll ever watch. I feel like when I think of professional sports leagues going to Mexico for a game, that's the first one I think of.
I just don't understand. Like, and again, they're going to say, well, they did advertise. No, they didn't. You and I are following baseball as closely as possible, watching on a nightly basis. This should be something that is must see TV. They need to do a better job of this because
I saw
the atmosphere looked electric.
I think I saw an Instagram post like the day of or the day before. Otherwise, I would not have realized and would have not have known until seeing highlights or something.
I mean, it was cool. I mean, it's a 7,000-foot elevation where they were as a stadium. It's a cool optic to be where they are, and they just
for sure.
I don't. It just is. It's a very bizarre thing that MLB doesn't put They did the same thing last year, and I think the only international series that gets the love is the London games. That's when they put a lot of love on that. But let's find a way to, like, you're doing it. You're investing in it. two exciting teams. Maybe pour it out there for the general baseball population to see. I don't know. It'd be pretty damn cool to see. But let's come around third here and talk about what we're looking forward to coming up this weekend. All right, Devin, we bid adieu to the month of April here, and we can no longer say it is early. So we're bidding adieu to that. And we have some fun watches ahead of us for here. And I mean, looking at some of the series kicking off, the Yankees taking on the Orioles on Friday night, partial to that as well. Really looking forward to the D-backs and Cubs. I think that should be a really fun series between two talented teams. And also, I would like to see the battle of the Astros and the Red Sox. It's kind of the battle of let's figure this out. One team has to win. But yeah, I think that's something to watch. And the other thing to watch is the New York Mets heading over West Coast on your end. We got to figure out a way, maybe positive, optimistic. The West Coast trip is just what the doctor ordered for a team that's beleaguered. What do you think?
Or maybe they'll pull a repeat of some Mets history.
Yes.
Have Carlos Mendoza fly to Anaheim and then fire him once they get there, like they did to, it was Willie Randolph, right?
It was Randolph, and then Jerry Manuel came back the manager. He just was the manager when they came back off the plane.
Yep.
Crazy.
Happy-go-lucky Jerry Manuel. I'm watching, I think, Reds Pirates. I feel like I've been highlighting the NL Central a lot in these coming around third look aheads. But Reds Pirates, man, that whole division is so fun right now. Cardinals have been way better than I think anyone expected, at least so far. Reds Pirates is so fun. I don't know the matchups yet, pitching matchups, but like, can we be blessed enough to get like Paul Skeens against Chase Burns in one of those matchups? I'm looking quickly to see if there's a possibility of those two matching up. Let's see. Rhett Lauder on Saturday.
Burns just pitched yesterday, so I don't know if that's
okay, so no. It looks like Sunday. No, Chase Burns expected on Sunday against Braxton Ashcraft, who has also been really, really solid for the most part. So that's a fun series there. But I'm also looking ahead, like, I'm getting into this whole like sponsor for each one of our segments. Meat of the order. We could get Arby's. We already play the clip. So we got that. What else do we have here? We got, what's the word? What's the word we could get? Like one of those like translation services or something. I feel like would be good. Duolingo. There you go. So that's what's the word? Sub to
Muzzy. Remember Muzzy back in the day? Is that going to be like one of the things
Muzzy.
That Muzzy was the dude who like taught everybody French? He's like this green monster. It would be like the book on tape that taught everybody French. You don't know Muzzy?
I don't know Muzzy. I don't know Muzzy.
You guys know anyone out there? I'm speaking to my people. Yeah. First thing, Muzzy language. Hold on. No, this is BBC. I need the picture of Muzzy. Here he is. The premiere edition. You can learn Spanish for kids DVD set. Learn from Muzzy.
So what's the word? Oh, there you go. We could try to get them. Or what's the word? You could get like Merriam-Webster, like a dictionary could be the sponsor. I don't know if anyone gets dictionaries anymore. Sub to Eric Crew. We already said like some like some Coors Light or something. Polls, we go strip club and the landing strip, and then red hot ice cold. We need something for red hot ice colds. What's something that can be hot and cold?
What's the fucking thing you put on when you're hurt? Bengay. Icy hot.
And this is a quite icy hot. Yeah. This is a pretty good collection of and then we sometimes do take a pitch or swing away. I don't know, that just has to be some kind of baseball sponsor there. But all right, we'll work the phones a little bit.
The other thing I'm looking forward to, and I am a guy who has 3 shares of the Miami Marlins on my team. Agustín Ramirez, Otto Lopez, and Xavier Edwards have been must watch every single night. These guys go out there and grind every single night. At least at some point a run scored, and they're all to do with each other. Ramirez didn't play today, but Xavier Edwards, they beat the Dodgers 3-2.
Well, did you see how Edwards ended that game with the double play by himself, chasing down Ohtani? That was awesome. Yeah. You read that play so well.
They're well coached. They really are. And they are out to play baseball every single night. And there's a lot of gamers on that team. And they're gonna be a thorn in some sides at the end of the year. I really believe that.
They've got Braxton Garrett like pitching below a 1 ERA in AAA right now. They've got Robbie Snelling striking out the world in AAA right now. So like that's the fun thing about the Marlins is like they have more in reserve, like ready to come help pretty much whenever they need to make the phone call.
It was the first series win for the Marlins in LA in 8 years. So Big deal for them.
That is a big deal.
Yeah. But we do appreciate you guys listening. I know we're dropping episodes once a week. We're getting into a rhythm of what the season looks like. As we mentioned before in the intro, we're going to try to give you guys more college baseball coverage. We're going to try to give you guys more fantasy baseball coverage. In the future episodes, we're trying to fit in everything in about 90 minutes, a little above 90 minutes in this episode. But if you want to support our show further, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod. Devin running the Twitter machine over there with some great content, dropping the notables every single day. If you're a new follower here, thank you for hopping along for the ride. We love baseball here. We love having a conversation, and we love interacting with everybody in the baseball community, no matter who you're a fan of. We are covering every single team with passion and love. We're not sitting here. We are both. I'm a Yankee fan. Devin's a Met fan, but we're not partial. And hopefully you guys know that we are neutral to what we are. Super stoked with my Yanks, dude. I'm happy to see. And this is how we started last year, so I'm not sitting here and acting like they're going to win the World Series, but you got Garrett Cole coming back and Carlos Rodon coming back. I know Stan got hurt. He's on the IL. That's not too encouraging. Anthony Volpe went from AAA to AA for some goddamn reason. Not sure what's going on with that, but the vibes are really nice over there. And I was listening to CMAC on WFM before we get out of here, and there was obviously they're searching for things to talk about, and there's a lot of Met bashing happening on WFN, of course. But one of the conversations CMAC was having with Carton, in the rare moments they're talking sports, CMAC was talking about having a moment watching Ben Rice and Aaron Judge batting back-to-back and wearing number 22, having this moment of realization that he's happy Juan Soto is not a Yankee, not because he's happy that he's not there, but because it allowed Ben Rice to prosper into the player he is. And if Juan Soto is in that lineup, who knows if Ben Rice gets the opportunity to be in the spot he is? I would like to think he does, because he was getting opportunities to hit and Juan Soto doesn't play his position, but certainly in the spot in the lineup, he wouldn't have the opportunity. And maybe all along, Ben Rice was the guy. We're always looking to line up a superstar with Aaron Judge. Maybe it was Ben Rice this whole time that he needed to develop into one.
Yeah, and that just goes into the thing of like, I think signing big free agents can be very effective and helpful, but I also think a lot of times like you need to be able to develop your own superstars or stars at the very least. And like the Mets are having that problem right now. As much as people are raving about their minor league system and how many good prospects they have, like I still need to see some of these guys turn out more. Nolan McLean looks great on the pitching side, but offensively, like Ronnie Mauricio, who actually I believe in more than any of these other guys. Brett Beatty, like, come on. Mark Vientos, like, send these guys to the moon, honestly, at this point. But you said, yeah, we will, not to go too far into that, we are trying to talk as many things baseball, as many different teams as we can in the 90 minutes or so that we come on here once a week. And there'll be weeks where we come on here more than once a week and maybe do shorter episodes as well. It kind of fluctuates through the year. But I'm actively trying not to talk about the Mets at this point because it just makes me sad. I can't go into my 40s just being very sad because of the New York Mets.
So the one thing I will say, I know there's probably bets out there. Will Steve mention Jason Dominguez's goatee? Well, guess what? You got to mention. So the over wins the bet.
There was a Kalshi thing on there about like, will Steve mention Jason Dominguez's goatee? And brought to you by Kalshi.
Yeah, and I mentioned he became the Heisenberg of the Yankees. He just, I don't know. Jason Dominguez getting his opportunity to play. We'll see if he can do it. But it's not a Jason Dominguez thing. It's a AAA thing. The guys are all doing it as camaraderie growing goatees. So it's not like he thought it was a fashion choice. He's just doing it as being part of the boys. So I do respect that.
I didn't see it. Is it like a landing strip? Like
no, it's a full ass. It's like a Stone Cold Steve Austin goatee he's got rocking like Heisenberg.
I just wanted to get landing strip out there one more time.
Hold on, I got to show you the fucking. It's a horrible goatee. Jason Dominguez and I have a lifelong feud. The guy can't play the field. And
can we get it up here and share the screen? Are we doing that right? Or can we share the screen and show some Jason Dominguez goatee for the YouTube audience?
You know what? I'll save it for you. Just buy some time. Do some talking, Devin.
All right. All right. Well, while Steve I don't know. Steve now looks like he froze because of Jason Dominguez's goatee, but he might still be there. If he's looking there, I will just say thank you guys for tuning in as we try to end the show on a goatee note. If you feel so inclined, maybe as a birthday present to me, leave us a 5-star review, a Spotify or Apple, where you can actually write some kind words there. We would absolutely really appreciate it. Helps us as always. But again, come back next week. We will be right here talking all things baseball. And here we go. Steve has that beautifully manicured goatee of Jason Dominguez to take us out of here.
Fair warning, Jason Dominguez is sporting a goatee. They started at AAA and he joined it. He still has it. There's the goatee. It's a little blurry on here, but there's his goatee.
See it pretty clear.
Solid covers though. Like he's got a good connecting.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It makes him look about double the age that he actually is, though.
Yeah. He looks like it's 21 Jump Street. Like, hello, fellow kids. I'm in high school.
Yes. Right.
Exactly. But again, we appreciate you guys listening to the show. We'll be back next week talking all things baseball. And until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy Jason Dominguez goatee.